Hi guys, welcome to the 3-day Raise Your Rates challenge. I'm Manali. If you haven't met me before, I'm so excited to dive into this. I'm gonna keep all of the days really short and sweet because I know you guys have a lot going on, but I'm excited to see just how this like positively impacts your business as a whole. So let's dive right in. So here is maybe where you're at and feeling today. Maybe these are some of the reasons that you decided to join the challenge. So if you can resonate with any of these, then you're definitely in the right place. I have personally struggled at some point in my photography journey with all of these. So there's definitely been times where I was not currently booking as many clients as I would have liked to, or wasn't booking the right kinds of clients. Um, I wanted to raise my prices, but I wanted to do it confidently. And I've also definitely had times in my business where I was juggling photography with a full-time job, and dancing competitively, and it felt very overwhelming to organize all of the tasks that I had to do for my business and really figure out what the like tasks that were going to make a difference were. Um, and in that same season of business, I was putting in a ton of really long hours behind my laptop, and was facing the brink of burnout because of it. So these are all super, super common things that happen for photographers as they're growing their business. I just want you to know that if you can resonate with any of these, you're absolutely not alone. And I hope that this challenge kind of gets you to the right path of like trying to do any of these instead and like really change your life. So you're probably here because you are dreaming of having the confidence in yourself as CEO of running the business side of things. So photography, like you feel like you have a really good foundation. You feel confident when you're going out in your shoots, but the business side of things is completely new for you. Maybe you're like me. I didn't go to college and get a business degree. I learned something completely and totally different. And it didn't exactly translate over to running a photography business. So a lot of the business side of things, I just had to learn on my own or through different mentors over the years. So another thing that you might be dreaming of is really taking charge of your own schedule. So like we talked about on the slide before, maybe you are just maxed out on the amount of time that you physically have to give to all the different parts of your life. And I definitely want you to know that like through the end of this challenge, you will definitely feel more in charge of your schedule with making just a really few intentional tweaks. And these intentional tweaks are also tweaks that are going to help make your business actually become more profitable along the way. And maybe you're also in the season of, you've definitely had a couple of clients now, but you're really looking to elevate your business and your brand and your whole client experience as a whole in order to really like raise your rates and find those dream clients that you're like dying to work with. So at the end of this, you will definitely be elevating your business and brand as a whole strategically and intentionally without a ton of work to do in order to, really elevate to the next level. And we're going to raise your rates. So you're going to be charging more for your photography services, and you'll have a clear path and strategy moving forward. That's really my hope and dream for you throughout this whole challenge. And so if you have any questions at all throughout the whole challenge, feel free to drop them in the Facebook group or shoot me a one-on-one message through Voxer, which is a walkie-talkie app. Those are linked in the emails that you're receiving, as well as linked in the Facebook group itself. So diving right in, here's a little bit about me, and I really want to share this because for the longest time, I was thinking, why me? Like I mentioned, did not have a background in anything creative or artsy. I didn't go to school for business either. And for me, it was really looking at other photographers and seeing how far they had come was super inspirational to me. And now I just want to really pass on the message that if I can do it, then I absolutely believe that you can too. So just quick little bit about me. I started my business in 2018. It was right after I graduated from college. And I was juggling a full-time job, commuting into DC and back, about an hour and a half both ways. And then I was also on a competitive dance team, and I was trying to build my photography business. So I'd been doing photography on and off kind of for a few years in college, but I wasn't super serious about it until I actually opened up my business in January of 2018. And so I only actually had three weddings of my own in 2018, one of which I was my very first that I was shooting on my own, and I only charged $600 for it. It was an elopement. But that was the year that I decided to invest in business coaching. And it was also the year that I was second shooting for a lot of other photographers, really trying to like make sure that I knew the ins and outs of wedding photography because that's what I really wanted to do. Um, and so, because I only had three weddings on the books, I took the time kind of upfront to start putting my systems in place, so that I knew I would be like able to handle like 3 to 4 times the three weddings that I was getting in a year. Because I knew like I was giving my three weddings my all, but if I had to do that for like 12 weddings, I still wanted to be able to like handle all of that. So I started putting up my systems. And I actually decided to go full time just 11 months after I started. So November of 2018 was the end of November is when I quit my full time job and started going full time with photography. In the following year, I actually tripled my income and hit my goal, like my revenue goal, exceeded it a little bit. And just over the last 4 years, I've really worked on continually raising my rates. And now I am charging over $5,000 per wedding, which is like insane to me. And if you had told my like high school self that like that's where I'd end up one day, I 100% would never have believed you. But that has just been a little bit about my journey. And now I'm really like so passionate about teaching you guys everything that I know and everything that has been helpful to getting where I am now. Because I know that you can do it too. But I also know that there's so much out there and it gets kind of confusing of like what is actually going to move me forward. So that's what this challenge is designed to do. So, like I mentioned, it's a 3 day challenge. Day one is going to be prepping yourself for profit. A lot of times, raising your rates can feel really scary. There's a lot of like fear and imposter syndrome, self doubt that comes up from that. And so, first, before you actually take any action, I think it's really important to kind of like prep your mind for it. Day two is the actual day of raising your rates and creating a map of how you're going to continually increase your prices over time to really hit the goal that you have in mind. In day three, we're going to talk about elevating your client experience as a whole to really justify and make sure that with you raising your rates, you have the value to back that up. So, diving right into day one for the whole challenge, we have a business blueprint that you can click or that you can fill out. And so it's linked here. And so there's a tab for each of the days. And then as you just listen to the content, you can go ahead and fill that out. And I'll ask you to just like answer some questions about you and your business as a whole. And this can be a document that you can just like refer back to as you continue on with business stuff after the challenge. And so really excited for you to get your hands on a copy of that. And it's linked right here. It's linked in the Facebook group and in the emails as well. All right, so day one. Day one is all about getting your brain on board. So raising your rates is truly such a simple thing, but it does take a lot of mindset work to be able to confidently raise your rates. Like raising your rates versus confidently raising your rates are two very, very different things. So we often stop ourselves from taking really bold action because we have the underlying fear of it. We start to tell ourselves stories about what raising your rates actually means, when in reality, you're really just like changing a few numbers. But we start to worry like about the worst case scenario, like what if no one books? What if I can't find anyone at this new rate? Like, am I worth raising my rates? There's all of that underlying stuff that is happening. And so that's what I actually wanted to cover a little bit about today. And so preparing yourself mentally in order to confidently raise your rates. So I want you to know that the fear, like, although it's all in your head and it's mental, it is very, very real. Like, it's a very real thing. It's even sometimes physical for people. Like, you start to feel your like heart racing, like your thoughts start racing, maybe your hands get clammy and cold. And this happens whenever we start to take action that's outside of our comfort zone. So your brain is very much so based on habit. So, and whenever it's because it tries to conserve energy. So, whenever you have to learn something new, you actually have to exert more energy because it's not familiar for your brain versus things that are familiar with your brain, you kind of almost do out of habit, and that doesn't require as much mental energy. So the reason why raising your rates is so scary is because now you're presenting your brain with something that's unfamiliar to it, and your brain starts to freak out. So that's kind of the reason why whenever you go to take any bold type of action that you maybe haven't like practiced or done before a lot, that's why that fear comes up. And it's totally normal. And it happens to everyone. All right, so let's talk about training your brain for the best outcome. So I want you to really get clear on what you're telling yourself you can or can't do, or what raising your weights means about you and what you think it means about you. So you want to really show your brain and your body that it's actually safe to go ahead and raise your prices. So we have two different systems within our body. We have the parasympathetic system, and that's what you're using when you're kind of like resting and digesting food, like you're calm, you're grounded, nothing is freaking you out, your heart rate is normal, like you're just existing and living. But then whenever we go to do something that's outside of our norm, you start to activate your sympathetic system, and that's the fight and flight like mode that you go into whenever there's anything that's outside of the norm. Anything that we perceive to be a threat, you go into fight and flight, and this system can actually be triggered just by your thoughts. Like you don't actually have to like physically see or sense a fear or sense a threat. Even if you think about a thought that like tells your brain that something is unsafe, it can switch into this mode. And so this is where like your heart is rating, or sorry, your heart is beating really fast. You have shallow breath. Like people sometimes, if it's like really intense, people will get tunnel vision. And primarily your body is just trying to make sure that it keeps you safe. So it like kicks you into a ton of adrenaline and it becomes hyper focused and hyper aware for any threats to defend yourself against. So this is going to be really, really important to know as you go throughout this whole challenge. So I'm going to keep diving into it. So it's helpful to know that like just your thoughts around taking any actions can like trigger you and move you into the sympathetic system. And our brain does default to worst case scenario to keep ourselves safe, like I just mentioned. And it's actually really interesting because our brain is technically wired to like keep us safe. And so the ratio of like positive to experience to negative experiences is 3 to 1. So you need you need 3 positive experiences to kind of like counteract one negative experience that you have. And so this is why consistent change is really, really hard. Because you have to kind of beat those odds in order to like teach your brain that something new is actually something good, especially if it feels really scary the first couple of times you do it. Your brain is going to be like, I don't want to do that again. But we want to show our brain that like the positive benefits of taking the scary action over and over and over again, so that one, your brain familiarizes itself with taking that action, and two, it like learns that that is a safe thing to do. So the way that we start to do this is through repeatedly rehearsing taking the action and seeing a good outcome from it. And I'm going to walk you through how you can do that. So first, I want you to think about like how would it feel like if you were consistently booking clients at a higher rate? How would it feel like if you were able to confidently raise your prices? Like what would that allow you to do? How would it benefit you? How would it benefit like your family and your friends and your lifestyle? And how would that actually benefit your clients? So before we go into tactically raising your rates in day 2 and day 3 and elevating your clients and the to-dos, I want you to familiarize your brain with actually taking that level of action. So show yourself like what are the positive benefits that would outweigh the negative if you're able to do it successfully and confidently. And then you want to write out the answers to all of these questions using all 5 of your senses. So like, what would you see if this is the case? What would you hear? What would you smell? Really involve all of your senses. And the best way to do this is to repeatedly visualize yourself actually going and physically increasing your prices, and then feeling happy as a result of that. So you want to like kind of create like almost a visualization, or some people call it like a mind movie of yourself doing that, and feeling really good about it afterwards. And so the first time that you kind of like mentally rehearse this, it might feel kind of funny. But again, that's because it's not something that's familiar to your brain. But as you keep repeating it, you'll just get more and more used to it, and it'll feel more natural to do. This is kind of why athletes will go ahead and do like visualization before um, races or like swim contests and stuff like that. It's just like familiarizing their brain and their body for the best possible outcome. And like that way it's easier to do, if that makes sense. All right. So from those questions, I want you to write out 1 to 5 sentences answering what would happen if it best case everything worked out for you from raising rate and elevating your client experience. And the thing is, I want you to write it out in present tense. And this is super, super important because as you keep mentally rehearsing things, your brain actually can't tell the difference between that, like you mentally rehearsing things versus you physically doing things. Like you mentally rehearsing is almost just as effective as you actually physically doing a thing. And so you want to write it out in present tense because then when you're repeatedly rehearsing it, it sounds as if it has already happened and it is done. You can also write it in past tense if you want. And so the way to like repeatedly rehearse things depends on what type of learner you are. So if you're a visual learner, again, like that visualization or like the mind movie is the best way of doing this. If you're an auditory learner, something that's really effective is reading out your sentences that you've written in present tense. Say them out loud repeatedly, or record yourself saying it once and then listen back to it. And if you're a kinesthetic learner, then I would really recommend like writing those out physically every single time. And so this is going to be your motivation and your powerful positive motivation around actually taking the action steps in day 2 and day 3, but having a really grounded and solid why and positive motivation is going to be one of the best ways that you can prime yourself to actually take action that does feel kind of scary.